Hello, listening people.
Hello.
Hello, Bartek. How are you doing?
Not too bad, Ryan. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I am here today talking about a movie with you that feels very special.
Yeah, I haven't done this 400 times.
We're cracking out the good stuff today because we here at Spit and Polish Presents are finally again talking about a movie, but not any old movie. Well, it is an older film. I'll give you that, Bartek. It is an older film, but
Thank you, I said it.
you recommended it. We are doing an older film, but not any older film, not any old film either. It is one that is Polish, and as two spitting young gentlemen who happen to be Polish, we rarely get to cover Polish films on the pod, so it always feels
third time?
important. Yeah. And how far apart have we done them? You know, each time. Was it a year?
You know what?
Between? Is it several? It's been a
You know
little
what?
bit of time.
I think it has been one each. I can't remember exactly when we did the
In
first
Desert and
one.
Wilderness?
Yeah. The second one was definitely last year.
Yes? Was it under the Silver Globe or on the Silver Globe? I always forget which part of the globe it was on.
When you said under, I'm like, that's the one. But then you said on. I'm like, I think it's actually on.
On the Silver Globe.
Yeah.
But we are here today on our show, Pictures Powwow, in which we talk about movies that come recommended to talk about a movie that has come recommended. But
That's why you said I recommended it.
Yeah, you recommended it.
Right. Yes, there's a cycle, isn't there?
There is a cycle. There is. We get a movie that has been recommended by someone. One week it will be Bartek's recommendation. The week after that it is a film that has been recommended by myself. And then the week after that, it is you, the listening people. You, the listening people, can recommend films to us. We put them on a list, and then we eventually get around to them. So if you want to hit us up with film recommendations, we have our social medias as well as our email, all of which is included in the description of this episode. But don't worry, we'll tell you again at the end, encourage you to do it. But Bartek, you were the one that pitched the film this time. So what one did you pitch? We know it's Polish, but tell us a bit more.
So I recommended to the podcast that we host a film from 1958, I believe. It's a Polish film, black and white. It's one of the most iconic Polish films, I believe. It's called Ashes and Diamonds. Polish title, I think, is Popiół I Diament.
You know what? I'm going to take your word for it. There's a lot of Polish
Popiół
being
I
spoken
Diament.
in this, and I didn't understand a word of it because I don't speak the language. Bartek, he speaks the language. So you were sitting there without subtitles on, just having a great time, right?
Like, you know what? I actually kind of had the opposite experience. I actually understood much more than I was expecting, to the point that if I understood something and I was kind of happy about it, and then I didn't finish reading the subtitles, I got really thrown off.
Because the subtitles weren't right.
No. They were right, but the thing was, if I didn't finish reading the subtitles, even if I understood the line, I felt agitated. I'm like, I want to rely on the subtitles.
I thought it was going to be a reveal that the Polish wasn't fully Polish enough.
No. I remember in Desert and Wilderness, I brought up a couple of things where it's like, they left out a bit of context for that line. But in this one, it seemed to all be pretty accurate.
Everyone, you can find this film online. It is available on the Internet Movie Archive, or Internet Archive in general, I should say.
Yep.
And I recommend you do watch it. It is a very dramatic story. It's one that takes place in Poland in a very specific period of time, right after the Second World War, and dealing with the communists coming in and the friction between the Polish and the communists and the people stuck between all of those woes.
I think it's set on like the last day of the war, but the Nazis had already left like a few months prior.
Yes. So the story, how would you describe this story to people in a way that you would want them to go out and watch the film?
I'd probably start with just like the basics of like Polish history, which is that obviously World War II, the trigger of that was the Nazis invaded Poland. There was obviously a lot of lead up, but that was the straw that started the Camel's War. But then after the war, after the
Camels War.
yes,
Yeah.
spoilers, the Nazis lost the war.
What?
Yeah, believe it or not. Nazis lost the war. Poland, yay, no more Nazis, woo. Oh, Russians, you're still here.
The US, where have you gone?
Where
Where's General Patton? Come back.
Russians, you're going to go, right? And then the Nazis go for about 50 years?
You said Nazis, you mean Soviets?
Sorry, the communists.
The Soviets, yeah, the
Soviets.
communists.
Until early 90s. Poland was occupied by the Russians for a very long time until the end of the Cold War.
And this film was made in 1958.
Yep. So
came out, so it's been under the rule of them for almost a decade at that point.
So about a dozen years into communist-occupied Poland. And so this film, it's set during the last day of the war, but the Russians have already, kind of started occupying Poland. And so the resistance people in Poland are kind of dealing with the communists now. And so the film follows 2 or 3 young Polish resistance fighters. 2. The other one was
older.
He was an informant or something. And they're on a mission to assassinate a mid-level sympathizer that's part of this, party that works for a cement company or something. I can't remember the exact details.
So the thing about this film, to cut to the chase of it, is we are following one young man in particular who is a part of this Polish resistance group who accidentally assassinate the wrong people, who did work at a cement factory. They were supposed to assassinate this communist sympathizer event organizer. So this man that they were supposed to get, he is fully a communist guy. He's a Polish man, but he's a full communist, and he is there to basically pave the way for what is going to come.
Yep.
He is there to quell the fears of the Polish people. But the thing is, he's a very nice person. He's a very warm person. When I label him as this communist event organizer is going to pave the way, it sounds like he's more ominous, but that's the rub of the film is
he's
a part of that. He's a
pretty regular guy.
The film has this interesting premise of these people did the wrong assassination, now people are after them. We're following them as they're trying to figure out where they can get the real guy, but things become more complicated. Everyone becomes more human. Even though this is a film dealing with the war of politics and ideology, it's still grounding it in these are people. These are people who have all suffered great losses. This communist character, this man who's going to help the Russians do what they got to do, he has tragedies in his life, as does our main character, whose name is Marcek, who is also the name of someone that Bartek, you've mentioned on the podcast many a time, and a film recommender.
Yeah, I mean, both of the 2 lead guys, they're names that we've mentioned multiple times, because the other one's Andrzej, the former president's first name.
Right. But everyone, please make sure to check out the film for yourself. It's an interesting hook. And the way this film tells that story is not the way one would expect.
Yeah, that was an interesting part.
So I take it that neither of us have seen this film before?
I'd only seen part of it before. I think it was when I was on my way to India.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the films that I could watch on the plane.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, Polish film seems to be iconic. I'll check it out. And I definitely saw the beginning. I think I fell asleep during. And then I woke up towards the end. I think I woke up when he was shooting the guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I missed too much of the film. And I think I stopped there because the film went on for quite a little bit after that scene. And I don't think I would have watched it all to the end if I'd missed so much of it. So I think, I tried watching it, but it didn't. But it stuck in my mind a little bit because the main guy has this very iconic look.
He looks like James Dean.
Yeah, he's got a very James Dean kind of look where, he's dressed more contemporary than for 1945 because this film was made 1958 but set 1945 and he feels like James Dean. I always remembered that he had sunglasses on all the time.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, after a certain point at the beginning, he puts on sunglasses and that's pretty much on him the whole time. And over the years, I just heard little things here and there about how, oh yeah, it's one of the most beloved Polish films. I think I mentioned last episode that a close family friend of my parents, this was his favorite film, and that guy was, a very big, proud Polish boy. And I'd always just been meaning to check it out again. I'm like, oh yeah, I should check it out, properly watch it, and appreciate it in its context. And certainly in recent years, we've done a couple of films on this podcast that kind of feel a bit like this one. So I was like, I think I'm mature enough to properly appreciate it. Plus hearing also that so many iconic directors have this as one of their favorite films and influenced some of their stuff.
Oh yes, Martin Scorsese pointed to this for The Departed.
Francis Ford Coppola, Hayao Miyazaki.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can see that for a few of those filmmakers. I did not know anything going into this. I tried my best. Yesterday, Bartek and I were hanging out. We were watching stuff together, and we mentioned that this movie was coming up, and I said, I know nothing about it other than what year it was from, and I don't know if it's a contemporary story. And then you immediately were like, well, it's set during blank. And I'm like, why did you tell me that?
Did I?
Yes. And then our friend Will was commenting like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm like, well, I don't know. I
could have sworn you said it's about like World War II Nazis or something.
I said, I'm assuming because here's where I'm getting into.
Yeah.
Because of the time period it's made in, I assumed, and it kind of did this, whenever I think of, what's a Polish film going to be? We've yet to get what I assumed they would be. We have gotten psychedelic fever dream with On the Silver Globe, and we got In Desert and Country, which feels...
Wilderness.
Desert and Wilderness, sorry. Which feels like... I don't even know how to describe that one. That feels like it's almost
like an adaptation, like a young adult novel or something.
Yeah, yes, but it also feels very much like a story dealing with like colonization.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me of Indian films we've covered on the podcast that deal with similar things. But this is much more in line with what I thought, which is whenever I think of what a Polish film is, I'm like, well, obviously it's got to deal with the Second World War.
Yeah.
It's got to deal with the Nazis. It's got to deal with that. So I said, because it's made in 1958, I'm assuming that the film's going to be about dealing with the Nazis. And it's like, no, it's dealing with the communists. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. And that was actually good to know because we've had this conversation on our show before. So both Bartek and I have Polish families. We have these Polish last names, or we have Polish culture, but we are very different. Bartek's family left Poland during the times of Soviet occupation.
Early 80s.
My family left after the Second World War, before any of this really kicked off. So it's very different points of view of what Poland is or was to them when they were growing up. Like for both of us, we're raised and born and, grew up here. So we have to ask our families, like, what was this like? And the attitudes and the mentalities and the viewpoints drastically different because there's two different Polands, basically. Or three different Polands, if you really want to go there. It's like my grandfather knew the Poland very well before the Second World War, knew the Poland of the Second World War very well, and then didn't know the Poland after that. Yeah. Your family, got the whole stretch.
My great-grandfather definitely during the war. I mean, I think he was born the same year as Maciek in this film, 1921.
Okay.
But then obviously all of the other family members are younger than him, so they got to see the communist Poland.
Exactly. So we've had these discussions about the communist-occupied Poland because I don't know much about it because my family didn't have to deal with it, and it's not something that we learn about here in Australia all that much. Like when you hear Soviet or communist-occupied country blank, it always goes back to, and then the Berlin Wall fell down, and that's where it ends. I can't speak for you and your experiences of like how Australian education went, but it didn't really focus on that. It was more just you got to worry about the domino effect. And that's why Vietnam happened, because we had to stop the communists from taking over this. But I never have understood fully. And we've talked about this with many films, like the Czech movies we cover. Like, okay, when they were under Soviet occupation, like how much of them were genuinely like liking this and how much weren't. And same with Poland. And, this film gets into all of that. It's about like, okay, this is made in a period of time where they've been under the communist rule for like a decade and a bit at that time. And this is a story about that first domino piece really falling into place.
Yeah.
And how were people reacting at the time?
It's like a dozen years into the thing, but the film's about like a very early part of the thing.
I have to tell you, before I really get into how I feel about this movie, I got to tell you this.
Mhm.
So I want to read you 2 plot summaries.
Okay. Sure.
So IMDb. Simple. As World War II and the German occupation ends, the Polish resistance and the Soviet forces turn on each other in an attempt to take over leadership in communist Poland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the summary.
Sure.
Yeah, fairly bare bones. Doesn't really get into the human story, just kind of more the broad strokes of like, here's
it's like the context of
big
the story.
picture play. I have a longer one, but it's important. This is Letterboxd's summary.
Yeah, go for it.
Which is a young academy soldier, Marchek, is ordered to shoot the secretary of the KWPPR. A coincidence causes him to kill someone else. Meeting face to face with his victim, he gets a shock. He faces the necessity of repeating the assassination. And then it talks about how he meets this girl at the restaurant, and his affection makes him even more aware of the senselessness of killing at the end of the war. Loyalty to the oath he took, and thus the obligation to obey the order, tips the scales. I wanted to read both of those because I feel like the film, I struggled with it so much during the watch because it felt like it was 2 films fighting each other. The Letterboxd film, in which it's about this man realizing the error of his ways and grappling with falling in love and realizing perhaps it's too late for that, and the other film that IMDb lists.
Yeah, the historical context and the human story.
I had a hard time getting into it because I liked both films, but both of them were happening at the same time to me. But it all came together wonderfully when Marchek does end up shooting the person he was supposed to in the first place. From that point on, which is 10 minutes left of the movie, it all wrapped together beautifully, and it made me reflect on the entire film as a whole, and it's a perfect example of how a final act is really important and how it can tie the bow on everything. Because I had some quibbles with the movie. I had some frustrations. I had these lingering feelings of not being able to get into the groove. But then you end on such a high note, and you have that moment, and then everything that follows afterwards, and all of these haunting shots, and the final shots of the movie is just very sad, and it just won me over. And I've been thinking about the movie. I only watched it earlier today, but I've been thinking about like the rest of the film that came before that moment, and like how it all adds up to that moment. And so I can see if someone else like me is watching this for the first time, that could be an issue, but I think it's one in which let the film's ending wash over you, and then you really bask in what the rest of the film was doing. Yeah. That's my piece of advice on it, because that's what I came away with.
Thank God 2011 Bartek stopped where he did. It's like, you missed out, acts 2 and 3 of this 5-act thing. I had a very, very similar experience. And when you said that, reflecting on the film was when you found your appreciation, that was me too. For me, it was like after I'd finished the film rather than during the ending. Because I guess during the film, I was focusing a little bit too much on the actual plot, I guess, weird to say, where it's like, we have to assassinate this guy for the mission, and seeing how all of these pieces are, contributing to that overall plot. But then after the film ended, it really did feel like, you should have been focusing more on the characters. And then, reflecting on everything, reflecting on all of the little character moments I really liked, like the, vodka scene.
Oh, that was a great scene.
That was a really great scene. And a couple of other things. It was like, this actually, if I had to pick the films that this reminded me the most of, but because of the setting, obviously the To Be or Not To Be came to mind quite a bit. But I was also thinking of all things, the film we did earlier this year, Last Spring.
Yes.
Yeah, the Japanese film, where it was like, this actually kind of had a bit of a Japanese storytelling thing going on, where it was more about the emotions of the characters. And I was just thinking of all the little moments, like obviously the vodka scene, but also the scene where Maciek's talking to the doorman, and they're, talking about, Warsaw of times gone by. And there's a lot of talk in this film about the times gone by, and, you know, we're looking to the future.
End of an era.
End of an era. We're fighting for the future, but we just cannot let go of the past. And, you know, Maciek's big character arc is, you know, coming to terms with that, actually realizing, like, well, wait, do I want to do what I am currently doing, or am I just trying to ignore, you know, certain feelings? It's a bit more complicated than that.
It's a very complex movie, both the movie itself and thinking about it from the outside of it is too, which we'll talk about later on in this discussion, because I don't want to get lost from the heart of the movie, because I thought of several films. It's funny because you mentioned Late Spring. I was actually thinking of
Was it Late Spring?
Yes.
Oh, not Last Spring. Okay.
But that's a slice of life affair about an end of an era in a personal sense.
Yes.
I was thinking of Yojimbo in the end of an era in a grander sense of like this end of this samurai era and this straggler coming around with that. Oh, and you mentioned like, you know, these filmmakers who got inspired, you know, and Kurosawa being one of them. Obviously different films, but I was thinking about like these type of films that have this kind of melancholy of like, this isn't going to work the way we want it to. But like, say with Yojimbo, for instance, you have a very simple story of like, I got to do, this thing's got to happen. This traditional genre beat's got to happen. And this one, it's like, we got to assassinate the guy. And there's going to be all of these hurdles along the way, like, oh, one of us gets captured, or this, or that, or, oh no, one of us gets cold feet, or so on and so on and so on. I get the hotel room next to him, and I have to schmooze the guy at the desk. And see, we get that. But then the melancholy and the real life nature of everything comes in. Like with Yojimbo, for instance, like that's a samurai story, but we have all of these pangs of sadness that kind of filter in and kind of dilute the simplicity of that genre narrative. And that's what we get here, where it's like, okay, at the very beginning, I was expecting, oh, the whole film's going to be them running from the authorities while still having to try and kill this guy because they killed the wrong people and people are furious. There are people who are upset, like fellow Poles who are upset.
Yeah, Maciek happens across the now widow of one of the people they accidentally killed.
And I was expecting that to be the thrust of it, but it wasn't really the thrust of it, but it was there to help complicate everything. And so, yeah, with this particular film, we have this historical setting. We have these characters and how they're involved in things, and they're in a crime thriller story, political thriller story. But then the end of an era of what is Poland and what did all of these people die for starts to weigh heavy on everyone, including us, the viewer at home. Like I mentioned, this communist sympathizer character. He's nice, like he's a nice person relatively, like, but he also has problems. Like he has this mother to his child, and he has this whole back and forth with her, and they've got like this dysfunctional relationship.
Yeah, he's got a subplot about looking for his son,
and he's got this subplot about all of these people that used to like remember when this person was alive, and how many of us are here now, and was it all worth it? And he's Mr. You got to believe in the conviction still, and you see that he starts to doubt that. You see he starts to doubt that bit by bit throughout the movie, but he keeps a composed face because he's got to be the person that's got to stay together. And then you have Maciek. His story's kind of on the inverse of that, where he is Mr. in the beginning, I'm playing it devil may care. I don't care that much. I'm just having a good time. I'm laying down. Oh, you're telling me I have to grab the gun? It's covered in ants. Oh boy, to becoming the person who realizes he needs to grow up and become more composed and become more in tune with his emotions. Is it too late?
Yeah, he's got a good dynamic with, I keep calling him the second main character, but he kind of fades out a little bit throughout the film. He's got the partner Andrzej, who's like slightly older than him, but they're old friends. They grew up together. And they joined the resistance together. They fought in the uprising, and, you know, they're still at it now that, you know, Nazis are gone. We're now against the communists. And you have a lot of little scenes with them, including the little vodka scene we keep talking about where, you know, they're in the bar, they're waiting for, you know, their next move. They got some downtime, And Maciek sees all these like little glasses of vodka, and he keeps telling him like, "Hey, what does that remind you of?" And Andrzej is just like very dismissive. Nothing. I'd know. And he like keeps, he rearranges them. It's like, what about now? What about now? He keeps doing little things. No.
Slides them down the bar in a silly way. All these things.
Yeah, and then as he's lighting them up, Andrzej's like saying names of like friends that they had in the past. So it's like, oh, did he just remember, or has he just been, purposely suppressing the memory? And the way that they reflect on this past life of theirs, it's very different tones where Maciek's like, well, they're gone, but I'm remembering them fondly. And Andrzej's very clearly more focused on the now. And then, the film goes on a little bit. We have like the love plot with Maciek and the girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the events that happens towards the end of that is kind of a turning point where Maciek is suddenly in doubt about the whole things, and he goes to his friend. They have the scene in the bathroom where, he lays it out, and in a typical, Hollywood type film or, more typical upbeat film, this would be the moment where, the main character says like, I can't do this, I need to get out. And his friend will be like, I understand, follow your heart, do what you need to do. But Andrzej is just completely the opposite of that. Very cold, like, oh, you're quitting now? Okay, go.
Yeah.
We're done. You're never going to see me again. And he's like not giving him a single olive branch. This friend who, has been very established in this film is, you're not part of the mission. You're not part of the resistance. Okay, this is over. You're not my friend anymore.
They weren't
Goodbye.
friends.
Yeah.
They were comrades in arms. They were brothers in arms. They weren't friends.
Yeah, there might have been a switch at some point.
Maciek may have thought that because he's immature, but it was always, we are doing this for a higher cause than ourselves. That bar scene where they're lighting up the vodkas representing the people who have died. Maciek's doing it as a fun little lark, and he almost sets himself on fire doing it, by the way, which I found very funny. But, Andrzej, he it's not as if he is forgetful, but he's taking it more as, how to describe it? Each name has a reverence.
Yeah.
Each person was
it's
a
the
person.
weight of what he is, following up on.
He is the character who, and I have issues with this, but he is a character who is so set in stone on what their ideology is and their convictions are that they come across as cold and inhuman. Because by the end, you're supposed to feel that. You're supposed to feel like, oh, wow, he's not going to give an olive branch. He's not reaching out to Maciek, but he's reacting the same way he's always reacted to things. He's like, we are here for this cause. I'm working for Poland. This is what I'm doing. And he is the one that gets the least amount of warmth. Because even the communist sympathizer guy, he gets warmth to him from the film. He gets a sense of humanity. Like, yeah, he believes in what he's doing too, but there's more faults and humanity to him. But Andrzej, he is so set in stone. Like, one of the final things we see of him is kicking another person on the ground and driving off because you're not a part of the team. You're only here because you lost your job.
Yeah, you're an opportunist.
You're an opportunist, and I'm going to leave now. And that's the last times we see his characters. Like, bye-bye.
He gets in the car, drives off, you never see him again.
And I do have issues with that a little bit because it's so interesting we talk about that character. Because, Maciek's a character, the main character, Maciek, he's so good as a main character because he is like a lightning rod for all of these other people. And in a weird way, you want to start thinking and talking about all of these other people that he interacts with. Because Maciek is
he's the
a
most
disaffected youth.
Yeah, he's definitely the most iconic thing about the film.
Yeah, he's a disaffected youth who's seeing all of these people who actually have problems in life and actually have concerns and actually have things they're driving towards, and he kind of cocks his head to the side. He's like, interesting. And then by the end of the movie, he becomes one of those people.
Yeah, he like doesn't meet them halfway, but he like meets them 20% of the way and just sticks there, kind of thing.
But during the bar scene, he was about to light the two last ones, and Andrzej says, "No, we're still alive."
Yes, that's when he reaches for it.
That's the most passionate he gets in that way. Like, no, that's the most like sense of hope. Because with Andrzej, it's always about like the fight. It's always about the struggle. It's always about the aggression. I have problems with that because, okay, we've talked about this a couple of times with Lemonade Joe and any Czech movie we've covered. Where does the politics and the agenda of the said movie lie when it was made in a country occupied by said forces? So, like, this is a film made in Poland, communist-occupied Poland. But how critical do you think this movie is of the communists, and how much could it be, considering it was still a communist-occupied Poland?
Yeah, that second part is definitely a key thing, because I think I've seen it described as like a very subversive film, very like anomalous. It's like, this is, communist occupied Poland, and this film on the surface seems like it's pretty anti-communist. So
yes,
and all of the reception at the time that I was seeing was like film festivals that were international. So I don't know how it was shown in Poland, if at all.
I think they still showed it because, again, I would love to know from Polish people, is Poland, or at least back then, was it one of those countries where films had to be approved by the government to be made in the first place, to get funding? Like Australia has that, right? With some films, like films get funding from this government body, and that's how they get made, right?
We talked a little bit about that on the Silver Globe, where that was a big thing.
That was a big thing. So we actually do know an answer to this. So actually we do know an answer
at least
to
for the
this.
70s, yeah.
Yes, but this film, I imagine, probably did go on to get that in some way. I'm not saying that this film isn't anti-communist in any way. I just always wonder how much so. And like with any film, it's made up of several people. How many of them were communists? And how many of them weren't communists? As this film shows, there were Polish people who were happily communists and happily for the Soviets to be there. And there are people who weren't.
Yeah.
We know this from films like Lemonade Joe, where that was a production made up of the same thing, where the lead of Lemonade Joe was an active communist at that time. And there were people who were actively against them at that time. And yet that film exists, and it's still a film debated today of where that one falls. I bring this up because I did have some minor frustrations that the Polish resistance, and Andrzej in particular, were treated less sympathetically, or less like on an individual level, less human than the Soviet communist sympathizer guy. Like Andrzej is the one that is the more cold character, but it's like, but what he's fighting for is rights.
Yeah, certainly what Polish people nowadays would be like. Yeah, definitely.
But not then. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. Maybe it got away with it because, like, the film, we are following anti-communist characters who are fighting against it, but then the point of the film ends up being, the more human story. Maybe that was what let them get away with it. I was seeing, I did scroll through, I think, pretty much all of the Wikipedia page at least, so, Wikipedia, I'm not always the most reliable, but it did have a lot of reception section from communist people who were criticizing, like, this wasn't accurately represented. And
oh no!
It half read as like, well, obviously it was anti-communist, but also like, well, how did it get away with being made at the time?
I'm saying, like, I can see that this is most likely a production where they had to be on the razor's edge of what they could and couldn't do, and for the time, there was lots of subversive stuff in there. But also, I'm wondering, like, how many things had to be concessions? Like, if this was a film made in a universe where the Soviets just got kicked out of Poland, would they be as... would they portray Andrzej the same way?
Well, there was an interesting thing, and I didn't look into it too deeply, but it did catch my eye. It said that, the film was very beloved all throughout the 20th century until basically the end of the Cold War, where some people were harshly criticizing it for the representation of the resistance. So, you're kind of touching upon that notion, I guess.
Interesting, because, I haven't read too much behind the scenes or stuff. I'm just going off of what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's the outside portion of the film I was talking about, because it is one where you watch it and it's so charged. It's so charged with what time period it's set in, when the film was made, and all of the forces around it, that you do have to take a moment of pause and be like, okay, what was the intentions here, and what did they have to do to get a fraction of those out there? Because you know that they wouldn't have been able to get it all out there. If On the Silver Globe had a fucking tough time doing it a couple decades later. I don't know how a film when the Soviet Union and the communists are at the height of their power were doing with it, This is the 50s. This is like Cold War baby. We're really going to kick it off in the next couple of years with the US era of it, So I'm curious of all of that. But
it's interesting because I did watch a couple of videos of people talking about this film. Some of them being some of the directors we were talking about that loved the film. But I also found a video of the director of this film himself, Vaida, I think it was his.
This was also the third in a trilogy. Of like,
I think I read it was like second.
Second. I thought I read third.
I'm sorry. But... Yes, you're right. It completed Vaida's war trilogy.
Yes,
following A Generation and Canal. Yeah. Oh, Andrzej Wajda. He's also Andrzej. And little note: a lot of the American people that were talking about this film, they say his name properly. So it's like, that's some reverence there. It's Wajda.
Reference.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like a 5-minute video of him like discussing the making of this film, and it was mostly talking about like the human aspects of it. It wasn't really talking about like the political stuff. Like he went into quite a bit of detail about making the shooting scene where the communist gets shot, and also the ideas behind the bar scene.
They are the things that matter the most about the movie. We can talk about all of this stuff about these bigger intentions and the way these are framed, and they are obviously there, but it is a very human story, and that's what I meant when I was watching it. I was having a difficult time of which side of it I was supposed to be focusing on, because
same.
There was stretches of this film where I didn't even realize that Marchek was the main character, because it came across as a film in which we're dealing with such, nuanced look at the inner workings of a country that I was like, oh, is this going to be a film where we don't actually have a main character, but more the situation is the character?
Yeah, it was like a long stretch of this film that's set in like this hotel room, and you're just jumping around to the different rooms with different characters talking, almost like a serious Oscar or something.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, the Delicatessens. Where it's like,
yes,
that was
that
one
too,
too.
That too.
That also had a resistance in that movie. Am I saying that was inspired? Probably. Wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, it seems like this
would
film
not be shocked.
This film seems to have inspired a lot of things.
I love the look of the movie as well. It was beautiful. This is the most cinematic, in the most sensible sense that we've seen from Poland. On the Silver Globe is very cinematic, but it's in a very surreal, strange sense. But you can't deny, like, that's a film that goes for scope too. But this is much more in that traditional sense of the word cinematic.
Yeah,
there
a lot of striking shots.
It was filmed like it was a noir. There was a lot of moody shadows. There was lots of striking uses of light.
The scene where Andrzej was going to make the phone call about, like, we did the mission, but then find out, like, oh no. I think the first shot of that is, like, he's the right side of the frame and Maciek's on the left side at the bar in the background. I'm like, oh, is this like two shots cut together? And I really had to stare at it for a bit to see, like, no, he's just really close to the camera. There's a clear, like, corner of a wall between them, and it's just like an actual perspective.
Yeah, nice forced perspective type shot.
Forced perspective, that's it.
It is got all of these little tricks of the trade in there. I mean, the shooting scene at the end where our communist sympathizer character gets gunned down, and then it's all of these fireworks go off. It is the set piece of the film, because obviously visually it's striking, but it is also our main character damning himself. He's now committed to doing this, and you feel sorry for both of these people. Yeah, honestly, a film that made me think of as well was Burning. The end of that film won't give away for those who haven't, but it has a very similar sequence of events in which you have these two characters confront one another, but one has deadly intent, and it ends in a certain way, and you feel bad for both involved. You shouldn't, but yet you should. Like, there's one you should definitely feel sorry for, but
there's a real sense of anticlimax where it's like, this is, what the film has been all about. Like, this guy and his faction need to kill that guy. And here they are, they're on like a sidewalk by a wall, walking towards each other. Maciek shoots him, and he does the mission.
But he damns himself.
Yeah.
Not only because this is a film made in the 50s in which if your main character commits a criminal act, they most likely have to be punished and or die. I mean, that's just how it goes. That's not even just a Western rule. That's just a rule back then. It's the damning of himself. Like, okay, he has grown. He's had all of this development, and now he feels cornered into doing this.
Yeah, and
who's he proving it to? And at the end of the day, who's that for?
Yeah, he was just a minute ago talking about how he can't do it. He doesn't want to do it. It's like he doesn't feel that there's a reason to do it anymore, and there he is doing it.
And you have that intercutting with the party back at the bar, with that silly guy who's silly from behind and up front. I love that character, like the conductor guy.
Yeah, the informant.
Yeah, and I loved, we have him and he's got all the music playing, and we have the intercutting of them looking at the fireworks and the main guy, Marchik, running away. But the intercutting of Marchik committing this act, and then the girl he's fallen in love with back at the bar, and she's looking sad, and it's almost like she can feel that this is happening. That's the beauty of cinema, is the use of cutting to tell these type of stories that obviously don't make any logical sense. How would she be able to? Is she psychic? No, of course not. But it's that thing about you're telling a story on an emotional level, and this is what this medium is perfectly used for. It's still presented in a very grounded, naturalistic way, gritty way. This film's very gritty, but it does have its moments of stylization, whether it is those intercuts or the spotlight effect on the body at the end, where it's like, okay, all the fireworks have gone off, but here's a little spotlight on that now dead man's face as he's looking up at the sky, and you just left at that. It's very theatrical. It's a moment of like a flourish of like, okay, I'm doing something more cinematic, more stylized here, but it doesn't feel out of place. It just feels like a perfect frame on this picture that we've been watching.
Yeah, in the video I mentioned before, when he was talking about that scene, Vida was talking about how it was Maciek's actor, his idea to have the guy walk up to him and them to embrace. Vida was saying like, oh, but normally if someone gets shots, they'll fall backwards, right? So it was like, a deliberate, but he liked the idea of like, oh, going forward and embrace. It's like, oh, you just killed this guy, but you're having this intimate moment that might imply like regret or a bit of sweetness,
and you can't detach from it. You literally held them in your arms,
and then you follow that up with a very dissonant celebratory thing, fireworks.
And then again, people, check out the film for yourself. Unlike with the man Marchek shot to death, Marchek at the end dies alone. He is literally in trash, writhing in pain, whimpering like a wounded animal. It's very different feeling to when he killed someone in cold blood. There was more warmth there. There was more friendliness there. While with his own death, with his own demise, he was just gunned down like just some beast, some wild animal that needed to be taken care of. Like the two soldiers that are running after him don't even seem that invested, but they're doing it because it's got to be done.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing like you look at the aftermath, like there's a dead body here in the rubbish, and to an outsider that's like, oh, there's a story there, and that kind of mirrors things earlier in the film. Like there's another iconic scene where they're at a church that's been completely bombed. There's an upside down Jesus
that's swaying at the very front of the lens there. It's like taking up so much of the
and this is
scene.
like this is right before like a really big turning point where Maciek kind of loses the devil may care attitude, where they're having essentially a date in this very horrible aftermath place where they're seeing the remnants of what used to be here.
We opened up on a church too.
That is actually true. We did.
One that they couldn't enter.
It was locked. And yeah, there was a story there, but we weren't really focusing on that. And now Maciek, he's dead in the rubbish, and how can you tell his story now?
Yeah.
He's just another, relic of something that happened before.
He is just another body one of his big reveal turning points is like, oh, what's under these sheets? Oh, it's the two people I'm gunned down in cold blood at the very beginning of this movie.
Yeah, he's getting yelled at for like, oh, you young people, you have no reverence for what's here. Well, what is here? And then, oh shit, it's the people I killed.
And one of the things that we have to contend with during the film is as much as Marchek grows, as much as he becomes more self-aware and has more beliefs, until that moment with the sheets, he's never really shown signs of like comprehending or major regrets about killing those innocent people. Like he saw the widow crying and he looked at it, but it was just a look, just from afar. That's over there.
Yeah.
And I'm over here. Now here he is over the top of the two bodies, and then later on, like we're saying with the gunning down of the guy, he has to hold it. It's about him over the course of the film. You can't just... I appreciate this so much. The Letterboxd summary makes it feel like he gets humanized because he fell in love with a girl. That's not it. That's not the only thing that contributes to him becoming a better person, because that is a distraction as well. Like, his romance with this woman does distract him from the fact that he is not looking at what he did in the first few minutes of this movie being truly abhorrent, because we have to, for the film, spend time with him. And for most of it, he's a bit of a larrikin of a character. He does not show much remorse for killing a teenage boy, basically, one who just survived the Nazis as well. They make a point of that at the very beginning. It's like, did you know this guy just like got out of the labor camps and then he got killed by one of his own? And it's like, how fucking miserable is that? And then we have to spend the rest of the 90 minutes with the guy who did that, who doesn't seemingly give a fuck about it. But then this is the moment where it's like, no, you can't run away from that. You can't just ignore it. You can't just look at it from your window from afar or get distracted by falling in love. That's not an excuse for not actually processing what you did.
It's a really good observation. Yeah, all of the things that really affect him in this film are in moments where the thing that influences him is like really, really, really physically close to him. Like the widow, she's across the road in another apartment room or something like that. But then he has these intimate moments with the girl where he starts to question himself. The bodies that he suddenly takes the sheet off and they're literally right in front of me. The guy he kills, he's at like a medium distance, but then he walks closer to him. Yeah.
He turned away from him to begin with too. Like he had a moment where he was like, "Oh, I don't have to do this," but then he turned back and he grabbed out the gun.
Yeah, like the opening scene where they kill the two guys, like they destroy the car as they're driving, and then the crash finishes them off. They're already running away by that point. We're not facing that. Even the moment where he realizes that the communist guy, I think his name was Stuka, when he's alive, he's at the reception, like literally right next to him. It is a shocking thing. Like, shit, he's like within a meter of me.
Even little things like we have a double conversation happening with Marchek and the man at the hotel.
Yes.
There's a double conversation happening there because the man at the hotel is having a genuine moment of connection. He's having...
We're fellow Warsaw.
We're fellow Warsawians, and he's processing himself how much he misses this place because he hasn't acknowledged that within himself. Like, this is just a minor character, by the way, and this is the first times we meet him, and he goes on this little journey in this conversation with Marchek about, like, you see him realizing he has not stopped to think about what he lost because he just moved on. I'm here and I'm doing the same job. But he has this conversation with Marchek, and you see he's having that. Marchek's having a completely different conversation. Marchek is, I'm using this guy. I'm buttering him up. I'm using my charm. I'm using my ability to grift and lie to get closer to the target.
Yeah, a lot of his responses are, like, oh, upbeat conversation, or like, oh, yes, I worked here. It's like, oh, yeah, I knew this place. Yeah.
And for people like ourselves who, although... not from Poland, because of our connections, we feel an attachment to this idea of what Poland was before the big atrocity that, forever changed the country and forever changed our families' lives. So when I was watching that scene and they're talking about like, oh, this is the time of year in which the chestnut blossoms and all of that, and then, oh, blossoms, that's a weird way to put it. But yeah, I was actually getting touched by that and thinking about like, man, what they lost, what this country was and the people, how they got dispersed, and even in these little ways where the people who survived, the thing that they knew no longer exists. That's kind of what my grandfather went through as well, where it's like, why stay in Poland? The Poland he knew's gone, so he just left. But then there was people who stayed, and it's like, well, you have to rebuild. And that's a part of what the film is talking about. Like, you have people who are like, no, we don't have to rebuild. We have friends from elsewhere who can bring their values to us. And then you have the people like, no, we've got to restore Poland. Then the people like, no, we've got to rebuild Poland. Then you have the youth who just don't know. They just don't know.
It's a really recurring idea in this film, and I think maybe this is what makes it so applicable to so many people. The people keep talking this film about like the times gone by, and the various different levels that they have towards that. Like young Maciek, he doesn't think about it as much, or he struggles to, and it kind of hits him really hard at the end, really quick, and in this period of his life, a very short period where he's trying to come to terms with all of it, he ends up dying. But then you have that older guy, much older than Maciek, who, very poetically, and as you said, a minor character, poetically describes all of this with, wistfulness. There is a warmth there, but also a melancholy.
Every time we see that character again, he becomes more and more of a person. At the beginning, he's this kooky old guy who's at the hotel and he's cracking wise, and they pick an actor who has a very distinct, like, old person look. Like, oh, you could see him in a Western playing the bartender or this
the guy,
or that.
The guy that,
like, they have
the first guy that the hero will, like, encounter, who'll give him, like, exposition.
But every time they shoot him since that moment, he becomes more dramatic. The lighting becomes more serious. He has more of these longing looks on his face. And again, this is just one minor character. This film has so many characters that we haven't really even talked about the love interest all that much, because although the film does focus on it and they do have a great back and forth, I would never describe this film with that at the forefront of my mind, of like, it's a story about a young man who falls in love with a woman who works at a bar and discovers humanity, and
that's one of the things that happens. One of.
I really like the moment. This is probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie. It's just a quick exchange of they're in bed together. They're lying down together, and she basically asks him who he is, because he's like, we've only known each other for a couple of hours. Isn't that crazy? And look how much has changed. And she just interrogates him about like who he is, because he's changed his attitude and even his look so much within this short period of time. Like, does he even know? And as he's sitting in there in the bed without the glasses on and shirtless, and he's the most vulnerable we see him in the movie is in that moment there, in that way, in that pure way. Not vulnerable and like, oh, later on in the movie he's killed someone, he's like, oh my God, what have I done? Or vulnerable and like he's a wounded animal. This is just him laid bare, and he's then told, do you even know who you are? And he doesn't have a smart answer for that. He doesn't have any real major quip or retort or anything philosophical. And then later on, when they're having their conversation, it's them two that's having their conversation, and they're talking about the poem that the title comes from of this movie, The Ashes and Diamonds. He can finish the poem because he actually has a bit more of an artistic and philosophical side to him that he just doesn't
connect
show.
To it now.
He doesn't show that to people. And he doesn't really realize that within himself, but because of the course of the movie and their relationship and him realizing he doesn't know who he is and what he wants, he is able to connect with this poem that the title refers to.
Yeah, I really liked her. She when you first see her, she's working behind the bar and he's doing the whole like, hey, I'm gonna flirt with you, and he's keeps moving the glass away like, hey, look how cheeky I'm being, look how cheeky, and just goes on for way too long.
Yeah.
And all of his interactions with her at the beginning, it's very clear like, oh, I'm trying to start up conversation, maybe we should get together, and she's like she has this very knowing attitude about her. Where it's like, I see where this is going. I know this isn't going to end well. I'm going to try to resist this, but eventually, she does let herself, go along with him, go to his room, start up a relationship. And as their scenes go on, you learn, like, okay, she clearly, like, was clinging to hope that finally something would come of this. But then, he reveals that, I have to go do this mission. She's like, okay, go. I should have not done this.
Yep.
This is what I was worried about, and it's come to be. It's like a very tragic inevitability.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple more things I want to say about this movie. One, the Polish resistance leader Andrzej, he looks so much like the guy from Casablanca that Rick has to give up the girl for. The one who's like the hero of the story that's not that story. I'm forgetting the character's name, but like he's the one that the Nazis are after. He looks so much like that actor that I was like, is that actor? It wasn't. Because that film had a lot of European actors in it too. I mean, heck, it even had Conrad Veidt from M in Casablanca. He was the head Nazi in that movie, and it had Peter Lorre and all of those. So it had a lot of people, but I had to look it up. It was not. But I wanted to know, like, okay, these actors. I was really impressed with all of these actors. I want to know what their careers were like. What did they get up to? What was their deal?
Yeah, I had a peek at a lot of their Wikipedia pages, and there was an upsetting trend.
Yes, you know where I'm going. All of them died surprisingly young or suddenly.
They were all like 30s or 40s. Like there was a surprising one which
suddenly.
Yeah.
Some of them died later on, like the main actress in this film. She died later in life, but it was also in a car crash.
Yeah, there was one. It was one of the characters who was slightly older. I can't remember who. It might have been like the communist, or maybe even like the doorman. Where it's like, oh, he's a bit older. He probably died, young as well. It's like, oh no, he lived longer than some of the younger leads.
Yeah, the communist guy. He died a year after the movie.
Okay, not him then.
No, the one who lived the longest in terms of like they got to be the oldest was the hotel guy.
Yeah,
he got to be 86. And he did this, so he lived for like 20, 30 years after this. And he got to that. But
he probably died. He died around the same time as some of the younger ones, but he already lived longer.
The lead of this film, Marchek, he died surprisingly young, and he fell and got run over by a train.
Yeah, just reckless at a train station.
I don't know the full story of that. I didn't get to read other than just like the basics of like he fell over.
All I read was that like he had a habit of jumping onto moving trains or something like that, and he was going to do it, but then he tripped and fell.
Oh, I see.
Something along those lines.
But he was only in his 30s when that happened too.
Yeah, it was like
39,
30, maybe just 40 or something. Yeah.
But I was just curious because these actors, they were very good, and I don't know a lot about Polish cinema as explained before. We haven't watched much of it. Like, even though we're both Polish, I don't know. Like, is it a case of it was hard to get any here, or just I can't speak for you, but my grandfather didn't really engage with Polish culture all that much, so watching Polish movies and stuff like that didn't matter.
I think I've only seen like one Polish film in the cinema here, but yeah, growing up, I don't think I watched too many.
Yeah, was your mum your mum likes movies? Does she is she someone who has Polish movies that she's like, oh, I really like Polish movies? She has shows. Your place has Polish shows.
Yeah, some contemporary ones. I don't know if there's any like iconic ones that she'd bring up, but like she very casually engages in Polish media.
More, but not as much as Indian media. Your mum will rather watch Indian movies than Polish movies, I would say. Right?
That's the impression I get, but then again, maybe there's just a lot she doesn't tell me about.
Yeah,
like, oh,
I'm just curious because your mother and father are Polish, while it was my grandfather. So there's also that generational difference.
Oh, well, my dad lives in Poland, so
exactly.
He's definitely Polish.
Exactly. But like my grandfather also, when he left Poland, we're talking about also like film talkies are still new. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
relatively.
Yeah.
So
and he didn't talk about it much, as you said.
Yeah, he didn't engage with Polish culture that much. Yeah, with your dad, is is he one that's like, oh yeah, I love these Polish movies, or is he not much of a movie guy? I always think of your mum as the movie person, but then you say, oh, I went to Poland to see a movie with your dad.
Yeah, just went to the cinema. And a lot of it was, just a Western film with Polish subtitles. I don't think we went out to watch any Polish films. I remember there was some social media account that my dad had where it listed his favorite film, and it was something Polish, but I can't remember what it was.
The other thing to say, we talked about a film. It was earlier this year, wasn't it? Krakatit.
Yes, that was one of the early
Czech
ones.
Film.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of that as well during this.
Yeah, for sure.
Similar era when they were made, but it's that thing of this film was set in the time that Krakatit was made. Because I was mid to late 40s.
I think that one was 48.
Yeah, so this is around similar times. And then this film was made in the late 50s.
Yeah, it's like 10 years younger than Krakatit, but it's set around the same time.
But there was that thing of, they just had a similar tone and vibe and just this worry of what's to come next.
Yeah,
what's to come next.
I wasn't so much thinking about Krakatit during, but when I decided to pick this film, I was like, maybe something like Krakatit, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that thing of I'm worried about the future. So I did watch this obviously with subtitles. They tracked well for me, but you said at the start, but I was wanting to hear any more about your journey as watching.
I was saying that before
Polish,
we started recording. Yeah.
Oh yes, watching a fully Polish language movie as someone who speaks Polish. What was your experiences with it overall?
Yeah. I talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but it was a little bit funny this time. So I think I talked about it in both of the Polish films we've covered so far. I'm pretty decent at Polish, understanding it at least, but it's not something that I was taught through education. It was just like, what I grew up with. So there's more complicated language that I don't know. I can hold a conversation just fine, but knowing longer words or more complicated words, not really something I can do. But watching this film, I understood a lot more than I was expecting. And I was having this funny thing where sometimes I would hear a line said and kind of be proud of myself. I'm like, I understood that. And then I'd start reading the subtitles, and then the subtitles would go away before I finish, and I started feeling agitated, like, I might have missed something. So it kind of made me realize, like, I really want to rely on subtitles regardless of whether I understand or not. No. It was an interesting discovery.
But I'm more curious of, were you able to tell what the performances were like because you can speak the language or understand it? Because, I have to just go off of my gut reaction of like, that's a good performance and they said that well, but I don't speak the language. And I was wanting to know like more from you, because we've watched plenty of movies that have like a Czech where it's like, there's similarities in the language, but it's different. Like you can't say, that Czech performance was really good as easily because, Czech and Polish are different to one another, where you say like Czech sounds like silly Polish. It's like, if someone spoke like this, like it's hard to judge. But with this, because the Polish films we have done so far have been so dramatically different performance wise, like on the Silver Globe, that's not about the good performances. That's not what that film's going for. And in Desert and Wilderness, yes. That one was very weird.
That one had a lot of things going for it. There were like just Polish people speaking Polish. There were
English bits,
Middle Eastern people who were dubbed in Polish, and then there were the two African characters that were phonetically speaking Polish.
Insane.
But didn't understand what they were saying, but like did a surprising good job. Like I could feel the stiltedness, but like they acted it as well as they could.
But anything else you want to say about this film?
No, I think we got it. It's one that after I finished watching it and was like thinking about it and reading up about it, that I found like the true appreciation of it. I was very similar to you. While watching it, it was still kind of just, grasping what it is, what's going on here.
I recommend the film. I think it's worth the watch. I think it tells a very good story. It's one that you warm up to it. I was watching it in the spare room here, my wife walked past and she said, "Oh, you look impressed," because I did not look impressed. And I said, "Oh no, it's just a very serious movie." That's what I said, because it was the scene in which all of the townspeople were standing over the two dead bodies.
Oh, so pretty early on.
Pretty early on,
Yeah.
and they were talking about like this one just survived the camps, and I just had this dour look on my face because it's really hard to take that in. Because the intro of the movie is kind of serious and fun, where we have the seriousness of like, hey, is this little girl gonna die?
Yeah.
Because she's not running away. But then also Marchek is like silly, and he's laying on the ground and he grabs his gun and is ants, and it's so silly. But then we get back to the drama.
There's a lot of juxtaposition of the innocence of the girl and the laissez-faire of Marchek with Andrzej's coldness and then the events that happen.
Exactly.
When you were asking me just before about like, performances, like how did it feel? The first thing I did think of were actually those townspeople who were asking like those very genuine, worried questions about like, what are we going to tell our wives? Like, I think a lot of their dialogue was stuff that I understood like 100%. Like, I've heard these exact sentences before in different contexts, obviously.
Oh yes. There was words I understood because you've said them.
Yeah. Oh really?
Yes.
Interesting.
When they were saying them, I'm like, yeah, I know that one.
Yes. When they go, my szklanka, when they drop their glass, because I sometimes like to do that. But yeah, and that was obviously with the scene where we met the quote-unquote antagonist, and he was like speaking to them, calming them down, but also revealing like, look, I am a communist, but I understand,
I'm a good communist.
Yes.
He was trying to reassure them.
Yeah, I also recommend the film. This is definitely one that you have to see all the way through if you're going to have a proper chance at properly appreciating it. So stick with it if you're not feeling it, and then see how you feel after. Ruminate on it. We talked a little bit about how a lot of the film is about times gone by, reflecting on that. And obviously, as we were bringing that up, we were talking about the context of the film, where it's like, political changes, the horrors of war and stuff like that. But very coincidentally, just yesterday, separate from this film, I was just thinking about other things. And it's going to feel very childish talking about this, comparing it to the heaviness of this film. But I was thinking about Chadstone Shopping Centre, which is a big shopping centre down here in Melbourne, the fashion capital of Melbourne.
Yes, it's gone through a lot of changes. We'll talk about that yesterday.
Yes. Coincidentally, we were there yesterday, just briefly. And Ryan came from another state, but I grew up in this state, in Melbourne. So I've been going to this place my whole life. I was even telling you yesterday, when I was a kid, I called it Chadstone because that's how I heard my parents say it. And growing up, it was a very familiar place to me, and I was very familiar with the layout of it growing up. And I was thinking about how, man, it's changed so much. It doesn't look anything like what I remembered. And I was kind of hoping like, maybe I can find like videos of people that were like recording the old place so I can kind of get nostalgic about that. And yeah, coincidentally thinking about that, comparing it to this film of also people to thinking about times gone by, how things change. So yeah, it was just a funny little juxtaposition that's nowhere near as serious, but that's my personal journey, I guess.
No, it happens like that. No, I understand that. And this film does have the longing for the little things.
Yeah.
That's a part of what was lost from the Second World War, were all those little things, like the hotel guy being able to say, I worked there for 25 years. He was shy a couple of months because the war happened. That's a little thing that was lost, but it's a little thing. And what you're saying like that, that's your own life experience. It's a little thing that's lost oh man.
Life is made up of little things.
Exactly. So, but that's what makes this film more human, is it's not just purely about like the Russians and the this and that, and there's no like evil Russian character in this movie, there's no like,
is there a Russian character
exactly
in this film?
Exactly. There's no guy who comes in with medals on his chest and he's like, you gotta crush the opposition. There's none of that, because that's not what this needs to do, and that's not what this is about, and obviously they wouldn't have allowed it at the time, I imagine, those Russians. But recommend. I do. This was a good film. And the more we're talking about it, the more it's growing on me. I've been very happy at late with the films we've covered. We've had a bunch of that where even ones that aren't perfect, there's been a lot of, as we talk about it, there's just so much to to take in and appreciate, or at least fine tune of like, oh, I didn't realize that. Like, we just did The Green Knight, a very, drastically different film than this one, but both films I've come away with that sense of like, man, I'm glad we have this ability to chat about movies and get into it more, because when you watch a film like this one here, you may watch and go, okay, I watched that, heavy, and then move on. Because I think that's just how film viewing has become nowadays a bit. We consume it and then we go on with our day. Which I find a bit distressing sometimes. And with movies like this, they demand that you don't do that. They want you to think about them in the longer run. I was actually watching an interview with David Cronenberg, and he was talking about how in Canada there was a cinema that was across from the regular one that was for the Italians. It was only Italian cinema. They only played Italian movies. As a small child, he really wanted to go there because he would see people come out of there weeping, openly weeping, men, women, children. It's like, what type of movies have they got over there that engage you in that way? And that's what I was thinking about with this. But I was like, this is also a part of the foreign cinema too. Not saying that, obviously we have very emotional movies, but there's something about like, this is from a country, from a culture that experienced something that several others have and also so few have. And this is a film that is exploring a very, very peculiar but very important piece of history. The history of this communist taking over. Because so often in the narratives of things, like the war was won and then all those countries that were occupied by the Nazis, they got kicked out of there and it was fine, right?
Yeah, there was no Cold War.
There was no allies divvied up places and gave places and invented whole countries that are now becoming a problem for us.
The Cold War wasn't like between two people that were part of an alliance, right?
Yes. And like I just even, jokingly said, like, we have all of the stuff with the Soviets, then we have the stuff with Israel, and then we have the stuff with this and this, and all even stuff back here in Australia. It's like, okay, we won this, but like now we got Papua New Guinea here, and we got this, and this. It's just it wasn't clean. As some people like to think it is. And this film delves into the murkiness of the transition of power, which is great. But the film I'm recommending for next episode...
Oh, yeah, we have to end the episode.
I'm recommending a film, and, I don't want to step away from this.
Oh, okay.
Weirdly. But we're stepping in a different direction. This is a 1931 film.
Okay.
Called Dishonored.
It's a fun game.
It's American, I think co-American German. I have to look into it properly, but it's a lot of Germans.
Okay, co-production.
And I don't know too much about it other than it deals with the Austrians. And it's 1931.
Okay.
So, and I know, and the lead actress is...
they had a failed painter around that time.
Yeah, they did. And the lead actress is someone of significant note that we have not had on the podcast, Marlene Dietrich, who we have not had before, but she is someone of significant note for that period of film history, and she is someone that if you don't know her, I'm sure when you watch it, you will go, oh, her, because she has a voice and a look that has been replicated throughout time.
Her first name is Malina?
Yep.
Raspberry.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. But thank you, everyone, as well, for tuning in. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, Spit and Polish Presents. You can talk to us on there. Bartek, if people want to contact us more directly, let us know their thoughts and opinions, or give us film recommendations, where can they go other than the social medias or comment sections on YouTube?
If you want to do it more privately, you can email us directly at spitandpolished@gmail.com.
Oh, good stuff. Were there any particular words in this film that you had a hard time understanding? Was there anything in the movie where it's like, because I know you speak Polish, but was it like pretty clean all around, or were there some bits where you were like, oh, thank God I had a subtitle for that because I actually didn't know that phrase or that wording or that thing?
Basically, any line that I wasn't 100% on, it was because there was just a word that I didn't know. So it would just be a thing of like, okay, that one thing that was said there must have been that.
Okay.
But it's not even something that I would have necessarily remembered, like how to say it. It was just like, oh, whatever they said there would have been that.
Yeah, I imagine there would be like more complex or super specific words for if you. I mean, I wouldn't know if there's like a very mundane, plain word that you just go, actually, I don't know how to say that one in Polish. Like,
oh, I'm sure you've asked me millions of times over the years, like, how do you say this thing? And I'll be like, just hesitate. Like, I know I've definitely heard it a million times, but I can't think of it now. Or it's one of those words that I've heard a million times and know in my head, but I've never actually said it out loud.
Before we end, we have to fulfill a sacred oath, a promise we made at the end of the last episode. Could you please tell us all about lectors? we promised that we were talking about lectors, and we didn't mention it one time. Look, I watched this in the original language, but if it was up to me, I would have watched this film with an English-speaking lector over it, in which a monotoned Bartek would tell me what's happening in the movie.
In all fairness, with a Polish film, we don't actually have to, say we need a lector for this. It's usually for non-Polish films, but yeah, I think that's the recurring oath we have, right? And whenever we do anything related to Poland and film, we have to explain lector. So, people who have heard this before, you can tune out, but you shouldn't, because
you're gonna be taught a thing.
You're gonna quit the episode when there's only like a minute or two left.
Quitter.
There's actually 10 minutes left because we just have a really good conversation about lectors. Lectors. Have you ever watched a news broadcast where they're talking about this important person in this other country gave a press conference, let us go to it now, and then you get cut to the important foreign person talking, they're giving a speech, but they lower the volume, and then a second into their speech, an English voice will suddenly start translating exactly what they're saying. That is Poland's preferred style of not dubbing a film, but giving a Polish version of it. Play the film normally, but quiet it down when there's dialogue, and then just have
one person,
usually the same person for everything, speaking clearly and not without much tone.
Definitely not
acting, just speaking the dialogue out to you like it's one of those news broadcasts in Polish.
And that's the way they do it. They hate dubs.
Yeah, Ryan, what happened with Stranger Things?
So the incident with Stranger Things was Netflix gave a fully dubbed version available in Polish with actors, several of them, men, women, children, all of that, giving dedicated dubbed performances, and Poland went up in arms about this. They threatened, they were like, how dare you, we find this insulting, this is such a disgrace, we want a lector, we want our lector. They wanted the specific one as usual. And so Poland, the Polish people got what they wanted. Netflix backed down, they got rid of, or at least they gave the option for a lector and downplayed the dub. So in certain areas, I do believe in America, you can't hear in Australia, but if you go to Stranger Things audio settings, pick Polish, you will hear a lector for Stranger Things. So these children will be like, golly gee, there's a monster after me. And the Polish man will be like, or whatever he says. It's just very monotone, just being like,
or something like that.
And it's so funny to see these little children, and they're muted down. Their audio is lowered to 20%, and then the audio of the Polish man monotonely describing that they're prepubescent voices. And I
think I've talked about it before, but my first experience with lector was I would go to not my aunt and uncle, but my dad, so my great aunt, great uncle, who I believe the woman in this film had the same first name as my great aunt,
yes,
Krisha. And they had a couple of VHSs, like, oh, whenever I went to their house, I can watch one of the ones they had. Like, they had Aladdin. So it's like, oh, nice. When I grew up watching Aladdin, it would be when I go to their house. They had this VHS of, I think it's like show adaptation of a Hasbro toy, like My Pet Monster, I think it's called.
Nice.
I think little monster, it's colourful. And they had this TV show of it, and it was lectored.
A TV show lector.
Yes.
Nice.
So it was this like children's cartoon that I was watching where, there are little kid characters here, and I can hear them speaking English, but for some reason, this adult man would talk over their dialogue in Polish. And I understood that, like, okay, he's translating, but why are they doing it this way? Why can I hear... I could just listen to what they're actually saying. Why is there this guy here?
There must be ways they go about it. Like, musicals must just let the song play.
Yeah,
they must just let the song play. They can't just do Chicago and just be like,
I know that for some
dazzle, and then the Polish man gives a version.
I know
of
that with some musicals, like they do their versions. Like I told you this, you know this. I grew up with the Polish dub of Toy Story, and they had their Polish versions of the songs.
Oh, interesting.
So,
and those are not even musical numbers; those are just songs that were made for the movie, right? Like you're talking about, like the Randy Newman songs.
You're right.
I'm talking about like musicals, like
Toy Story is not a musical, but it does have a couple of songs.
Yes,
I guess.
Yeah, but that's even more interesting. Like the Poland will, on the occasion at least, for songs, get a Polish redo of the song. Yeah. But I was curious. I was making the joke of like, can you imagine? Like just
full on musical number
singing in the rain, but it's just like a monotone Polish man just saying the words.
It's a bit different from the opening credits sequence of Toy Story, where instead of, you have a friend who meets
See, that makes sense to me. That happens a lot. We get a lot of that. But thank you all so much for listening, people. This is our usual Polish lector talk. We have encountered, with having done several foreign films, there are just different ways of translating and, transmuting across languages for people. Like subs and dubs aren't the only ways to do it. There are other methods. We can have VJs.
I just remembered something that I haven't thought about in a bajillion years. When I went to Poland once as a kid, might have been like grade 2 or grade 3, I would watch, like Polish Cartoon Network and stuff like that. And, growing up, I watched Cartoon Network at home here in Australia. So there was a lot of, I've seen all this before, but now I'm getting the Polish dub of it. These shows were dubbed properly. They weren't lectored. But there would be the occasional thing where, a sign would appear saying something, and it would be in English. But what they would do in these cartoons they would have the lector to translate that sign. So it's like...
Oh, he would come out of the blue just for one moment.
Yeah, so cut away to a sign establishing like, oh, this place is called this. And
Old Campus.
Yeah, and then it would be the Polish lector just saying whatever that is in Polish. So it's like selective lectoring, I guess.
I love selective lectoring.
Oh man, I haven't thought about this in forever.
I thought the lector does it for the vision impaired. You know how there's the vision impaired?
Yeah.
It's say a Polish person seeing the film Lion starring Dev Patel.
Oh my god, lectoring and the visual impaired.
Lectoring and the... how does that work? I don't think Poland would give a fuck enough for the visual impaired to also give them a lector at the same time. I think it's like you get the one version of it.
Yeah, or if anything, just like dub the film and lector it.
Is a lector not basically doing that in a fashion anyway? It's like they're just describing the thing to you.
But the visual impaired thing like describes like specific things, right?
Visuals, yes.
They're not reading just the script or something.
It's that thing too of like, yes, that's true. That is true. It would, in a weird way, it would actually be an easy enough thing where the lector can still do what they do, but then also just, if you time it right, also just say, they're grabbing out a gun now. That's it. But I'm not a lector expert. People, thank you so much for listening again. If you're a lector, let us know. What's it like? What's it like to be a lector? One of the 4 people who do it. There's not very many of them. So if you're writing in, if there's more than 4 of you writing in about it, I know you're lying. I know you're lying. There's not very many lectors out there. It's a very selective business. One dies in a generation and then another one gets to rise up the ranks and they're already 40 years old.
It's a selective business, and as I just remembered, there's also selective lectoring. I want to see if I can find like a YouTube clip of a cartoon where it happens.
We got Johnny Mnemonic's lector on YouTube.
Yeah, is there a sign in that film that they didn't translate that they would have to lector over it? But then that's not selective, that's normal lectoring and selective lectoring.
Select.
Let's call that extra lectoring.